Okay, welcome everybody to the return of the Wednesday night meditation series, which is known as Dhamma Yarns. So we will be meeting on the first Wednesday of every month to bring you a Dharma talk and a guided meditation and a good yarn. And when we say yarn, yarn's a bit of an old-fashioned Australian term, but what it really means is, to have a good solid discussion, a good chat about stuff. And that's what we're trying to do with this series, is to bring the Dharma into everyday life. So we will be meeting on the first Wednesday of every month. You have to excuse me for a minute. A Dharma talk. So our first speaker for this series is going to be Drew Bellamy. And Drew's here to talk to us tonight about right mindfulness. And I've got a bit of a funny story. I was out for coffee a couple of weekends ago and I walked past this newsagent and they had all of these magazines out for $2 each. So I had to rifle through. And along the way I found mindful puzzles. And then I found a mindful planner. And then I walked down the street a bit, and in the window of this sports shop was this mannequin sitting in bright pink leopard print lycra, full lotus position, mindful. And that's when I started to question this, and I thought, apart from the appalling fashion, I don't think they've got the right idea of being mindful. And I don't know if I want my mind to be that full. So Drew, please set us straight. Tell us, what is right mindfulness all about?
Thanks, Sandra. And it's good that this series is back on. Even once a month is enough. So tonight's structure is I'll do a half an hour guided meditation and then I'll give a 25-minute or so talk and then we'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end, aiming to wrap up somewhere around about 8 o'clock. So.
Yeah, and just for the people listening along at home, so I'll be moderating the chat, and what I'd love you to do is please ask any questions or comments. Try and stick to the theme, and when you post your questions, put a Q in front of the question. That way I can pick them all up easily, shoot them across to Drew, and we can have a good yarn at the end.
Great. Alrighty, so we might just... get comfortable in our chairs. No one's on the floor today. And as the lights go down, we'll they're not going down, so we'll just close our eyes anyway. Oh, there we are. Great. Good stuff. So we'll just close our eyes. Just spend a minute or so checking our posture and being comfortable in our seat. If we're sitting, grounding our feet on the ground. And then we'll start with a body sweep. So we'll start all the way down at our toes. And we'll just be mindful. That is to say, aware of our toes. And maybe we'll just give them a little wiggle. And then we'll come across and be aware of the soles of our feet and how our feet are on the ground, grounding us, making contact with the earth. Maybe just give them a little stretch. And then coming up to our calves, just give each calf a little flex. Just feel if there's any tension. Try and be aware of the front of our calves, our shins. Maybe give them a little flex. And then moving further up the body, come to our knees. And just maybe stretch our leg if we feel we need to. Just feel if there's any soreness in our knees carrying us around all day. And if there is, not fighting it, but just being aware of it. And then moving up to our thighs, just feeling our legs, feeling our thighs, maybe give them a little flex. Just acknowledge them, all these body parts that get us around during the day, and most of the time we don't even know they're there. They're just doing their thing, except if they're hurting. And then coming up halfway through the body, and now we're at the stomach. Just feeling if there's any tension in the stomach, any tight knots, any anxieties that's manifesting as tightness in the stomach. And if there is, just being aware of it, going into it, not running away from it, giving ourselves permission to relax this area of the body. And then feeling our lower back as we sit down. Just checking if there's any pains, any problems. Usually there is, especially halfway through life. And again, just being aware. And then coming up to our chest. Taking a deep breath. Seeing if there's any tightness in the chest, any tension. If there is, maybe we can just take a deep breath in and out. And then coming up to our shoulders and upper back. Just checking our posture, making sure we're straight. Just feeling if there's any tension on the top of our shoulders. And again, if there is, not resisting it, just being aware of it. Aware that it's okay. It's okay to have some tension if you can be aware of it and let it go. Coming up to our neck. Being aware, just feeling the neck, that it's there, carrying our head around all day. And coming up to our face. Is there any tension around our lips? Is there any tension in our face muscles? Can we relax our face muscles just a bit, just for a bit? Around our eyes, between our eyebrows. Are we scrunched up? Can we relax? And finally coming to the top of our head, to our scalp. Maybe you can feel a tingling sensation when you really concentrate on your scalp. An area you probably never think of. And then last but not least, our hands. Sitting in our lap, are they relaxed? Are they sweaty? Are they tight? Just letting them relax, just consciously letting the muscles fall away. the object of meditation, we're going to come to the breath. We're going to, at the tip of our nose, just be aware as we breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. Just feeling the sensation of the breath through the nostrils. And allowing the breath to be the object of meditation, so we don't have to think. We don't have to hold on. Just breathing in, breathing out. Just letting sounds like thoughts just come and go. Not clinging, not grasping. Just following the breath. And not controlling the breath. Just purely observing your breath as an anchor in the meditation. If you're breathing in short, be aware that you're breathing in short. If you're breathing in long, be aware that you're breathing in long. Returning to the breath. In, out. Any thoughts you're having, they come in just as quickly they go out. Gently focusing on the breath and not getting distracted with thoughts. Just relaxing. Relaxing in our bodies, resting in our minds, focusing on the breath. as we come to the end of the meditation, again, just doing a quick sweep through the body. Are we more relaxed? And in the last few minutes of meditation, just checking that we're still following the breath. And to end the meditation, I'll count down to 1, and then we'll open our eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I didn't do much guidance on that meditation compared to usual because I just felt in the room that everyone was pretty settled. That's good. That's good. Okay. Oh yeah, and I forgot the bell. So we had to do a countdown, but that's nice too. Where is it? Oh, there it is there. Okay, so my talk tonight is on right mindfulness. This is second last in the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you think tonight's talk's pretty good, you can always, and you missed out on the other ones, you can always go back onto YouTube and you should find on the BSWA channel my talks on right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and here we are at right mindfulness. So mindfulness is a term that Sandra was hinting before that seems to have been hijacked by mainstream, society, I guess. I first noticed this about the same time I came into Buddhism in roughly about 2005. I was working for a big company in the corporate sector, and they used to have a lot of training. People come in and do training and teamwork days and all the rest of it. And from about 2005 to 2010, before I went into my own company, it seemed like every man and his dog was offering, right mindfulness in the corporate workplace, which is an oxymoron. The corporate workplace is just ruthless and dangerous, and people aren't very mindful because they're just trying to survive and or climb the tree. I think it's pulled back a bit now. I think all those consultants have made their money on the mindfulness bandwagon, and they have to keep coming up with new things. So I just don't see as many of those talks anymore. I did a few of them, and the problem always was that you can't take right mindfulness on its own outside of the Noble Eightfold Path, because mindfulness on its own is not enough for Buddhist practice, and really mindfulness is awareness, and if you're just aware and that's it, then you're not going anywhere as far as spirituality is. You have to develop an awareness, I guess, a consciousness, and then you have to apply it to something. And the hint in the Noble Eightfold Path is that after right mindfulness is right samadhi, or meditation, you might call it. And so mindfulness is important to set yourself up for the meditation where you can really apply your mind to a single point focus and make it extremely powerful, and then look at things and gain insights. But to get to that point, you really need to develop your mindfulness by literally being aware of everything all day. And in fact, if your mindfulness is on track, and it can wax and wane in your life depending on how much you've got going on, one indicator I found is that when you're doing a bit of practice and your mindfulness is working, and then all of a sudden at night time you're asleep, but you're mindful, like you're mindful of the fact that you're asleep even though you're supposedly unconscious, and you can watch your dreaming and almost maneuver your dream, and then upon waking, so to speak, in the morning, you can recall that dream or multiple dreams. I think that if you're able to do that, then your mindfulness is really, really on the right track. I have two suttas that I was having a look at to sort of give a bit of structure to this talk. And there's one in the Anagutya Nikaya, so that's the numerical stories of the Buddha, chapter 4, number 117. And I'm just summarising this stuff. I'm not going to go into it because I don't have the time, and someone like Ajahn Brahmali would do a much better job. So in this particular sutta, the Buddha talks about 4 things that if you concentrate on and I guess keep out of your mind, that will set you up in a more mindful, aware state and improve your concentration. And quite simply, he states that when you detect lust arising in your mind, to be aware of it and let it go, and that will help with a clear consciousness. The second one is the ability to detect hatred arising in your mind or anger, and immediately letting go of that and not letting it overtake your mindfulness. The third one, which is a bit trickier, is delusion. When you detect delusion arising in your mind, to keep an eye on it and let it go. Delusion's a pretty broad thing, and really what he's talking about is keeping an eye on right view, the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path. And then the fourth one, to finish it off, he talks about being mindful of intoxication and how this can harm your mindfulness. And in particular, intoxication, he's talking about intoxication with youth. And that doesn't need an explanation in today's society, and the obsession with being young and all the beauty creams that people sell and all the rest of it to stay young. Intoxication with health, which I think is quite interesting. And in other parts of the suttas, the Buddha talks about eating food just as food and not being enamored with it, that it could, you could eat some special vegetables or herbs or whatever, which is going to make you super healthy and live a long time. Beauty, and he also, intoxication with beauty, and he also talks about intoxication with learning or opinions, basically, being completely welded to your view of the world being right when a lot of the time it could be wrong. So that was actually quite a short, simple sutta. The second one that I'll base the rest of this talk on, but I won't go through it because it's very, very long, is the Satipatthana Sutta. This is a very famous sutta in Buddhism. It's very extensive. The Buddha goes through the full 37 factors of enlightenment. And within this sutta, he does talk about mindfulness quite a bit, and he divides mindful practice into 4 things that you can do on a daily, yearly, or minute-by-minute basis. So the first mindful contemplation is mindfulness of the body, and there's a few practices in there where you're literally sitting there, and you're like the sweeping meditation we just did then, the guided meditation, looking at the body. The Buddha talks about being mindful of the body, being mindful of the foulness of the body, the beauty of the body, and the body's decay. He then talks about mindfulness of feelings, so contemplating feelings as feelings and being aware of them as they arise and pass. And hopefully, if your practice is okay, you can sort of guide or lean your mind towards abandoning the feelings that might be negative and moving more towards positive feelings, but not rejecting feelings. In the spiritual world, there's a lot of people that come here, say to the Buddhist society, and they want to do the spiritual bypass on feelings, and they want to get straight into meditation and straight into mindfulness, but not mindfulness of feelings. But fortunately or unfortunately, they're part of the human condition, and they need to be dealt with. And sometimes it can be pretty ugly, but you can't put them to a side and ignore them, because they'll come back for you. So he goes into a bit of detail in that sutta about mindfulness of feelings, but really it's just about being aware of what's rising at the time, and neither attracting or repulsing to it, but just being with those feelings, and then allowing them to go on their way. The third out of the fourth that he talks about is being mindful of the mind. So that sounds a bit counterintuitive. But when you think about it, about being mindful of the mind, a whole lot of stuff can suddenly sort of open up to you. And by saying be mindful of the mind, the Buddha's saying that the mind is part of the aggregate of you, and like other parts of the aggregate, so feelings and the body and the rest of it, mindful of the mind or mindful of consciousness, it is just part of an aggregate, and it's not you. It's not the core of you. It's just one of the functions, and by being mindful of your actual mind, like watching your consciousness, you can then prove that it's just one of these aggregates, and that if the mind is not the centre of you, then this lends support to his doctrine of non-self. And, you know, if you can be mindful of the mind, then in theory you can change the mind, and you know, and you can do this as well with when I was talking about the feelings. So then, if you can change the mind, then you're not a fixed, permanent entity, and again, that can then come back to non-self. And if you really think about it, it starts to get pretty scary, actually. If you can change yourself, then yourself is not fixed. The good news, I guess, is that on the spiritual path, you can change in a more positive, wholesome direction. And then this is probably the quickest ever talk on this sutta, because I know that Ajahn Brahmali did a workshop about a month ago on this sutta, was it? And it went for 6 hours or something.
They were big days.
Yeah, that's a big sutta.
We had a series of 4 Saturdays.
Right.
Absolutely brilliant. So, go online and have a look.
Yeah, I'm just giving
really good.
The summary for a friendly discussion. But if you want to go really deep on this stuff, then you could watch Ajahn Brahmali's Satipatthana Sutta classes. And then number 4, the Buddha talks about being mindful of mind objects. And the translations from Pali don't work really well sometimes into English, but mind objects, he's talking about the Dharma, the universe, worldly phenomena. So in mindfulness, you're watching your mind and the way and what it leans to, but then also there's what the mind itself is seeing, and then he drills down into the things that come through the mind and how the mind reacts to them with the 5 hindrances and the 5 aggregates, and the four noble truths. But yeah, if you think about it, you can watch your mind's reaction to the worldly objects that come to it, and if you can do that minute by minute, day by day, you're definitely on the path to mindfulness, and that, I guess, is the real mindfulness. The being mindful of your body, and you have to be. You can't spiritually bypass your body because it's the vehicle that we have to inhabit in the mundane world. Mindful of your feelings, mindful of the inclinations of your mind, and then mindful of the daily phenomena that your mind is dealing with and how it deals with it. If you can do that, then you're practicing mindfulness correctly and setting yourself up for great meditation, setting yourself up for single-pointed focus in a meditation, and it takes a lot of work, and you've got to start at the beginning of the Eightfold Path, have the right view, and then have the right thoughts which come back in, which are connected to mindfulness. Have the right speech and right actions, so you're not generating the wrong sort of karma that's gonna affect you and then disturb your mind. You have to be engaged in the right livelihoods. So you're not generating that karma or generating yourself angst all the time. you have to put in the right effort. The last talk I gave, and that's about the middle way. And then once you've done all that, not necessarily sequentially, but you're putting enough effort into all of those as you can, then that makes the right mindfulness much easier. And then when you've got the right mindfulness, your meditations will really take off. But of course, meditation is not the end of the Buddhist path. It's purely just a tool for you to be able to gain insights and develop wisdom and see the world as it really is. That's the name of the game. If you had such a concentrated mind that you didn't need to do meditation, and you just did, you got to mindfulness, and then it was all sorted out. Actually, your meditation wouldn't even be part of Buddhism. Like the Buddha's a very practical guy, and he had the meditation there to enable us. But actually, if it wasn't of use, it wouldn't be there. And the name of the game is insight. And also, aside from the meditation, if your mindfulness is developing fairly well, you'll begin to gain insights outside of meditation, just because you're being aware of things and you're being mindful of things. So there's sort of a pair that go together, and in my own experience, I find mindfulness is sort of a two-edged sword, because on one hand, if I can keep it at a good level, I do start to see things and realise things that I didn't know before, and that gives me great joy, and I feel like, something's working somehow. This is really good. But unfortunately, as you become more mindful and sort of peel away some of the layers of our supposed reality, what you're looking at behind the scenes can sort of be quite unpleasant sometimes. When you really become mindful of possibly some of your own faults and the work you have to do, and then how the world really works. If you're being mindful about it and you're concentrating on it properly, you'll know you're on the right path, because you'll get a few shocks and go, oh my God, is it really that bad? Ooh, geez. But then the flip side of that is it can motivate you to keep going on the spiritual path. It can propel you with haste that something's got to be done about this situation that we're in. And another thing about developing mindfulness is, anyway, for myself, I've realised that our minds really do create the world. They create what is happening to us and what is happening around us, and that's a good and a bad thing. It can be bad because some of the negative stuff that might be going on in your life, suddenly, if you're mindful of your mind and its inclinations and reactions and whatever, when the negative stuff's occurring, you go, actually, that's to do with me. Like I have to own that. But then on the flip side, in parts of your life where you might be quite successful, you also get to own that as well. And if you examine mindfully what's working and why that's positive, then you can gain some inspiration in yourself and your practice, and some confidence in yourself as well. So that was a very short summary of mindfulness. it's like right view. It's a wide-ranging subject. Something like right action on the Eightfold Path is quite straightforward and quite easy. Don't go around murdering people and harming beings and whatever else. But mindfulness is a little bit more tricky, and I know that it's easy to get lost in it. So I hope that in the 23 odd minutes that I've been talking about it, giving this summarised, compacted view and breaking it down in just the 4 things of mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, and mind objects, that may give you something a little bit easier to digest than the Satipatthana Sutta. But as your practice develops and you begin to get a handle on mindfulness and you're aware that you are more aware and there is some signs in your life that it's working, like I was talking about the dream states before at the start, then you may dive into the Satipatthana Sutta and try and follow more rigorously some of the exercises that the Buddha gives, including there's one about it's called the charnel ground or the cemetery meditation, and this is tied into mindfulness of the body and an exercise in impermanence. So at 25 minutes, I will wrap up my very short discussion on right mindfulness, and I'll leave the floor open for perhaps a bit of a Q&A, or if there was any questions online, we can perhaps spend 5 or 10 minutes discussing that. I'll make it a Q&A AMA, so that's question and answer, or ask me anything. So,
ooh, doors open, people. The gate is swinging.
If you're going to get up here, then you've got to go for it. So there may be some other burning question you had about, who knows, whatever, karma or rebirth or something else. Please feel free to ask that as well. I'll take any questions from the floor first, I think.
Yeah, let's take questions from the floor, and the people online, remember, cue in front of the question and fire away.
Okay.
So does anyone have any questions from the floor? And Conrad or Delusia, can we just get a roaming microphone, please? I forgot to grab it.
Oh, great, a question straight off the bat. Usually I've got to coerce people into it, threaten them that I'll ask them a question.
Don't worry, there's a bubbling discussion happening online,
Okay.
So we'll get to that next.
Can you hear me through my mask?
Maybe just pull it down for 2 seconds, you'll be right.
So I'm pretty new to this, and it's really interesting what you're talking about, and I'd like to watch the really detailed thing on it by Ajahn Brahmali.
Brahmali, yeah.
Brahmali.
Yeah. Hope you've got lots of time.
Is it better? Maybe in parts. But is it better to put that off and start with the basics first, or is it still helpful?
So how long have you been coming? Have you been meditating for long, or examining?
I've been meditating kind of on and off, I've been meditating for a couple of years.
Okay.
Conditions have changed and stuff, so it hasn't always been very good meditation.
That's what happens.
And I've been I've been practicing mindfulness for a while, though with things like with my type of job, it makes it quite hard. But But getting into the philosophy, that's something I'm starting now.
Yeah, that's good, and that's typically how it rolls. A couple of years in, and there's a few bits and pieces working, and then you go deeper. Ajahn Brahmali's workshops, I've seen a little bit of it online, and I've done some of his before. Very, very good and authoritative, but there's a lot in it. If I was you, I would maybe spend a few months getting your meditation perhaps up, to maybe 3 or 4 times a week if you could, for about, even only half an hour at a time. And just think about what I said with, being mindful of the body, like the sweeping meditation we did. It's as simple as that, being mindful of your feelings, being mindful of your mind. That'll take a bit to get your head around. And then being mindful of your mind's reaction to the world phenomena. Even just starting with those four, that's a lot. That's a lot to do. I think if you did that for a little while, and then you went into Ajahn Brahmali's Sutta class, it'd really drive home. There's nothing better than a bit of real-world practice and then go into the classroom, and then real-world practice and go into the classroom, because you might find it a little bit overwhelming, his 6 times 4, 24 hours of talk. That's what I recommend. Okay. You're on, even the fact that you're thinking about it, you're moving in the right direction. So
yeah, that's the thing. I teach meditation about 4 times a week at the moment, and I often get asked, how do I start my practice? I try. My mind's so busy. My knees hurt. My back hurts. It's just not happening. And what I say to people is it's about forming good habits. And one of the really important messages from Ajahn Brahmali's Satipatthana Sutta series was that mindfulness doesn't beget mindfulness. So we don't sit down and get mindful. So one of the things that always something I've done myself is I find a little place in my house, and that's where I go each day. And even if it's just sitting down with a cup of tea and just giving myself that space, it's sort of beginning the habit, beginning the invitation to be with the breath. So Satipatthana Sutta is basically 4 parts of it. Mindfulness of the body, not just the physical body, but the body of the breath. Mindfulness of feelings. Mindfulness of mind, recognising it's just movements of mind. All these thoughts, just movements of mind. And then eventually you come into stillness. And look, every day is completely different. I can sit down in the morning, have a wonderful meditation. Next day, I sit down, it's entirely crappy. But, you're just forming the good habits, forming that sila, that morality, that right effort, that right action. And right. So it's not right or wrong, right. It's just creating that space for you. I don't know, that's something that's worked for me over the years.
Great. Any more questions from the floor? No? Okay. Anything online?
There's quite a lively chat going on here. So, yeah, and this is interesting actually when we look at, this is worth a yarn actually, this is quite interesting when we think about mindfulness, because someone's asked, what is occasional depression about? And what he's saying, it's not constant, but I have days where my spirit just seems heavy for no apparent reason. Am I living in the past or am I living in the future? What's going on there? Like, how do we use mindfulness to ride those highs and lows of life? You got any?
Okay, that's a question for me, is it?
Well, we can answer it together, but I reckon you could start.
Yeah, I'm just mindful of the time.
That's all right.
I would say that you're not going to dodge the highs and lows, unfortunately. Even the most experienced practitioners hit the lows, and in fact, Ajahn Brahm's teacher, Ajahn Chah, he at the end of his life ended up in a coma and spent many years in it before he passed. And this is a very famous monk with obviously very good karma, and he got rolled by life too. But he set the example of just taking it in his stride, and I'm sure that he would have just been mindful of obviously the 4 things we talked about, and if you're dealing with depression and some days are high and some days are low, not being repulsed and not being attracted to it, but perhaps just being aware of it, and if it's possible, watching it rise and fall. I know it's easier said than done, that's for sure. But that would be the place to start, and if you could apply some mindfulness to that, even if it just chopped off 5% of the intensity or whatever, then you've made, it's working to a degree, and you've made some progress. And it's not a perfect world, so you're going to keep getting those highs and lows, unfortunately.
The other question, it's kind of an interesting one, and we are coming close to time, but I'll just try and summarise quickly. So, it's quite funny actually. So how do we become more comfortable with hearing people hyperbolizing, exaggerating? And the author has noticed that exaggeration seems to be prevalent in Western language and comedy. And someone else has responded and said that, I find myself taming my tendency to be an exaggerated speech person. It makes life more simple. So I guess that does tie into mindfulness. Like if we are aware of when we're exaggerating, we're aware of the reaction that another's speech causes us. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, that's an
It's the essence of
that's
comedy.
An unusual question.
Yeah.
Watch less TV, read less newspapers, and don't get caught up in that rubbish. And what's the exaggeration about? If someone's exaggerating, it's about competitiveness. It's about trying to achieve something, trying to show the world that your particular, whatever it is, skill, product, whatever, life is better than someone else's, and it's so exaggerated that the other people have to listen to you. So exaggeration could also point towards an overextended ego. But that's the way the world rolls around, and you're probably, again, it's out there, and the best thing would just be, to be mindful of it, not get negative about it, and try and stay out of it, and just go your way, because it's not going to change.
Yep, and lastly, I feel it is hard to meditate without guidance. How can I overcome this?
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. That's it's kind of what I was telling my friend about forming the good habit. Don't get so. Don't strive. Don't struggle. As it says on the stage here, make peace. Be kind. Be gentle with yourself, and build up to it.
I would say that in some circumstances it becomes very easy to meditate without guidance. So if you've done a retreat, sort of day 2 or 3 into the retreat, it just becomes really, really natural and easy. And in fact, a guided meditation becomes a hindrance because you're sitting there meditating and you've relaxed and you're like, go away, Ajahn Brahm, stop talking, I'm nice and peaceful, stop
You're
it,
disturbing the peace.
Yeah. So look, if you're running a busy household life, you're probably not going to get great daily meditations. If your life's a bit quieter and you're getting a few hours in a day, they're going to be better. Just depends what your lifestyle is and where you're at the moment. And I say that a little bit is better than none, and a lot is pretty good too, if you can do it.
All right, well, that's the end of the questions. So I'd like to thank everybody for being such wonderful participants online and in person. And I'll just take the opportunity to say a few thank yous, if I can. because there's quite a lot that goes into putting this evening on. It's, not just switching on the camera and having a yarn. So we have our wonderful AV team in the booth up the back of the room. Delusion and Conrad, and behind the scenes is Jake and Sue, the Elle in the office who advertises all of this for us, our wonderful speakers. Thank you to everyone, and we're so happy to be back. And we'll be back here on the first Wednesday of next month. And as always, the yarn continues. Now Ron has put together a beautiful spread on the table in the kitchen, and I'd like to invite you all to join us. And if you're around on Saturday, the Kalyana Friendship Community will be meeting. I'm not sure which monk will be sitting down with us yet, but there's the usual guided meditation at 3 o'clock and then the KFC at 5 o'clock.
Thanks, Sandra.
But
and
let's
thanks,
pay
Sandra,
our
for
respects.
Thanks, Sandra, for being the coordinator of all this. I'm just going to do 3 bows, and then we're done to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that this is supper and conversation. Just go to there and